Right, UFC Louisville. Cody Stamann versus Taylor Lapilus. I'm not going to talk about the women's fights because that's the ones that's going to end up ruining what the rate is on the card. And I'm just not interested. So, Cody Stamann, Lapilus. Who am I going with to win the fight? Taylor Lapilus for me, and it'll be a boring decision. This fight here will be extremely boring. I have to tell you that for a fact. Cody Stamann's one of those guys where if he can't get the takedown and he tries to box with you, he can struggle to pretty much fight out of range. And if you look at that fight of Douglas Silva and Andrade, you saw it there. He was ending combinations with leg kicks and he couldn't find his way into the pocket to find the chin that often because of how good pretty much Andrade was with the range. Lapilus is an expert at using the range. The reason he lost to Basharat is because Basharat is a higher IQ fighter than him when it comes to using distance management and then mixing up the takedowns with the striking. Lapilus don't do that. He's got relatively good takedown defense, but when you are worrying about a guy with a high IQ, with very good takedown setups, with striking that isn't that good, but it can get him by because of how good his grappling is, it kind of puzzles him. Cody Stamann's had habits in fights by making bad decisions on the ground where he'll lose the position and get submitted. That has happened before. Not only that, like, look at the Sula stretch that Aljamain Sterling did on him. Not only that, the Saeed Nurmagomedov guillotine. Stuff like that. And Lapilus is just really good at popping out that jab and staying out of range. He's just so good at it and measuring the distance. And I can just see him going out there against Stamann with the way longer reach than he has and just beating him with that jab and being like a basic, boring fight to start the men card, not the women card. Daniel Marcos versus John Castañeda. This one is actually harder than it looks. You might think, oh, John Castañeda. No, I mean Daniel Marcos, you might be thinking, because look what he did to a lot of his opponents. Like, what was it? The Oliveira guy, Simon Oliveira, where he just bullied him out there. But that guy just looked like a can, if I'm honest here. And the last fight, robbery, not that one, the one in England, which I have no idea why they gave it to him, but that was because of feints and him being drawn out. And the Ori Quileng fight, he was going to win that fight. Accidents happen. He didn't get paid. Well, he did, but you know what I mean? He wouldn't get as much as he would have. But anyways, Daniel Marcos for me is going to win a decision, but I am not 100% confident. I would not advise you, any of you, to put anything on this. Over 1.5 rounds for me, I'm confident in happening. John Castañeda, he's very light on the feet. He throws a lot of leg kicks. But then you've got the Muay Thai Daniel Marcos, and the Muay Thai in him will allow him to check a lot of the kicks that he's going to throw and then force it to be a boxing fight. And that's what I'm a bit scared of. When it comes to boxing, I think John Castañeda can outwork him. I really do. Daniel Marcos can outwork you with kicks, but John Castañeda, with his boxing being loose on the feet, I can see him catching Daniel Marcos at like different angles because of the difference in his striking style, which was coming down low and then coming high compared to John Castañeda, who he can predominantly box, but I said he'll mix up a few leg kicks in the fight. But to me, he's predominantly a boxer. And don't get me wrong, he might even mix up a few takedowns because that's another thing he can do. And Daniel Marcos, being good at Muay Thai can very impact your performance when you're defending against takedowns, especially those knees down the middle, which you can see coming and you time quite well. Like we saw him do it against Simon Oliveira, stopping the takedowns. So that's not what I worry about. I worry about his boxing. And after that, I think we need to start looking at a ranked fight if Castañeda wins. But I do think Daniel Marcos will win a decision by checking the kicks and then looking to strike, especially with his boxing and the hooks is what I'm looking for him to throw. Because John Castañeda is going to be light on the feet, getting in and out. He needs to be quick and try and beat Castañeda to the first punch, using that lead hand a lot to win that fight. Right, here we have a stupid fight in terms of, I don't know why the odds are that high, but Brad Katona will win this fight. And I'm not being fazed by the KO. Yes, he got chinned by Jim Miller, who suddenly out of nowhere developed some stupid levels of power which he never had previously. Steroids. No, I'm joking, but Brad Katona for me, comfortable decision. He's one of those guys where he don't hit you hard, but he has good fight IQ, he's fast, and he's in and out. It's a lot of jab, feint, maybe throw a cross back out of range. He never throws like so many combinations at once unless you're gassing. Like the Cody Gibson fight was a good example of that. When he started to slow down, the combinations started to come out more, but it was the Garrett Armfield loss, which you could argue he won. Controversial. But a guy like Jesse Butler, from what I've seen, he's just one of those fighters where I'm like, he should be on CFC, LFA. He's not UFC level to me. Not just because of the Jim Miller knockout. You'd be like, oh my God, look at this win streak. You've got to give him a chance. Fair enough. But look how inactive this is. He don't even look like he really cares. He's doing it to make a bit of extra money on the side. Brad Katona wants to do well, but he's just struggled and it's probably been demotivating at times. I don't know him personally. But Jesse Butler, for me, he's just the can. And I believe he will just go out there, stop the takedowns, and pretty much just mess about with him in there. No, I'm joking. He wouldn't mess about. But you know what I mean? Just play a safe, boring decision. Jesse Butler's overcommitting and just getting made to look silly in the fight. Right, Charles Radtke versus Carlos Prates. Right, you're not going to like this one. I'm going with Radtke to win by KO in the second round. Now, hear me out. His fight against Blood Diamond looked awful. It actually did. It was just hugging, and then on the feet, it looked like at times he was about to get outstriked. He had that huge thing in his eye, but he's based. I don't know why I'm bringing that up. That's irrelevant. But Carlos Prates is a better striker than him all around. But that's not how MMA goes. I think this is a bad matchup for Prates because Charles Radtke is one of those guys who he'll take his time to get going, but his accuracy on punches are really good and kicks. But I don't think he's going to be able to land a lot of kicks because Prates, he's good at keeping the range. But keeping the range won't work in this type of fight. I don't think it will because Radtke will keep marching you down and he'll try and be in your face. And go back and watch that fight of Prates. In the last fight that he had, he was losing the fight and then just comes out of nowhere with a cross combination and it just knocks out Trevin Giles, who's already got like a glass jaw. Charles Radtke's not a glass jaw. Look at how much damage he had in that Blood Diamond fight and he just kept coming forward. Against Carlos Prates, I don't think he's going to grapple straight away, but I think he's going to pressure him to the point where Carlos Prates leaves his chin wide open, and he also at times, he will shell up and he won't move his head. Trevin Giles was just spamming crosses, overhands and hooks, and I was noticing he was holding his hands close to his head, but not moving his head at all. And Charles Radtke's got a really good job of finding the target with that left hand. He'll lead off that cross a lot. And when he fires off that hook, he can do it going backwards. He can do it going forwards. You saw him knock out Gilbert Urbina from not knock out, but get that knockdown from stepping backwards and doing like a check hook on him. I think with Carlos Prates, he's going to be going backwards a lot because he wants to use the kicks. And going backwards, I don't think he can fight that great. If you actually look at the knockout, that wasn't coming from Prates fighting backwards. That was coming because he came forward and he put Giles on the back foot. I don't think you can put Radtke on the back foot because he's just one of those fighters where he just wants to be in your face. And I think the pressure will keep building up and building up. He'll be struggling to land the kick and then bang, he gets caught with a left hook and he gets put down and he gets finished with a ground and pound finish because Radtke can grapple as well. Prates, on the other hand, concerns me. But overall, I do think Prates will go further in the UFC than a guy like Radtke, but I think this is a bad matchup for him, which I believe Radtke will win. Right, Thiago Moisés versus Ľudovít Klein. I am actually shocked that Thiago Moisés is the underdog in the fight. I really am. And I am going with Thiago Moisés by submission. And I think round 3. But I think he could do it in round 2. I don't think it will be early because with Ľudovít Klein, as the rounds go on, he can slow down because he has a high output. It's a lot of from Ľudovít Klein clinching, elbows, knees in the pocket, and then mixing up a takedown. He does a lot of things that use a lot of cardio out of him. And then you've got Thiago Moisés where the way he loses is if you can overwhelm him with pressure and start firing off so many combinations like we saw Benoit Saint-Denis, like we saw him get overwhelmed against a guy like Alvarez, the Spanish guy. Ľudovít Klein ain't going to be able to do that. What he will do though, and I think he will win the first round comfortably, he'll try and keep it at range and look to start working the legs. And then occasionally firing off an elbow as Thiago Moisés tries to get close. But then I think in round 2, that is where Moisés will be able to close the distance. And you'll start to see that Ľudovít Klein's fading a little bit from that high output. And then Thiago Moisés is able to get a double leg, because when Ľudovít Klein is throwing now, he's kind of like throwing but missing, which was opening his body up for a takedown. And I also think in the fight, because he'll be a bit tired, he'll look to clinch, even though it'll be the dumb thing to do. I think Klein will look to clinch because he does it with almost every opponent. And as soon as he tries to clinch, I think the fight's over, because Moisés will get that outside trip, take him down to the ground, and then I'll see him working to get an arm triangle. But I think he'll get close in the second round, a bit like that fight with Nate Landwehr and Ľudovít Klein. He got a deep choke in the second round because he was breaking Klein down by being in his face. And I do believe that Ľudovít Klein will be on the back foot a lot in the fight because he doesn't want to get taken down. He don't want to be too close in range. But I think when you're getting tired, you kind of have to hold on. Otherwise, even though Thiago Moisés hasn't got any power, he's not a knockout artist, he'll be in his face and he'll be throwing those leg kicks like we saw against Mitch Ramirez. But then that's why I think round 3, Klein will be completely gassed. And then Thiago Moisés is looking to get that double leg, gets it pretty much perfectly, and just gets into mount and passes and gets a arm triangle. That's how I see a fight going with Klein. Klein has got the ability to knock him out, but he's got to hit him hard on the chin, because you don't really see Moisés get cleaned out on the feet. It's usually from a ground and pound position, and I don't think Ľudovít Klein can get him there. And when I say usually, the times we saw it against Alvarez standing, but again, he's quite tall. He is an awkward fighter to fight because of his frame, and pretty much, yeah. So, yeah. Right, Punahele Soriano versus Miguel Baeza. So, pretty much Poundland Tyrone Woodley against, I can't even compare Baeza to a fighter, but I'm going with Baeza, and I think he was going to KO Punahele Soriano. He's one of those guys who's very aggressive early, if he's not scared of the opponent. So I'm going with a round 1, because you'll see in that fight with Chaos Williams, he looks so scared. And who wouldn't be? That guy flatlines people, and it's painful the way he knocks people out. Andre Fialho, that win has not aged well. I mean, that loss has not aged well. He's fell off the grid of the earth. But Punahele Soriano, he actually looks awful in the fights that he was losing. Baeza don't. He just looks either scared, he will have a good moment in the fight, and then his chin will let him down. But these are against powerful punches. So I'll let him off with this one here, the Chaos Williams. The Andre Fialho was interesting because he stayed in the clinch too long and allowed him to get hit with uppercuts. But Soriano, his fight IQ is horrific. Losing to Dustin Stoltzfus, probably one of the worst fighters in the UFC, concerns me. And he's moving down. His chin hasn't been a problem for me. It really hasn't. Baeza, yes it has. So will he carry more power from middleweight to welterweight? Possibly. But again, you could argue he might lose power because he's going down a weight class, but he'll obviously bring some with him. But I think he looks like a type of guy who would be better heavier than lighter, because in this division you've got more grapplers. And on the topic of grappling, I think Baeza was going to grapple with Soriano. I saw that he did a grappling competition, I think it was recently, or it might have been in 2023, and he already could wrestle itself, but he prefers the strike and the feet. And he throws a lot of leg kicks when he wants to. He will dead the leg and make your striking pretty much flat-footed. So I'm predicting a round-1 KO, but it'll be like the Kopylov fight, where Punahele Soriano, being like Tyrone Woodley, spamming the overhands, they're going to miss, it's going to look silly. And then Miguel Baeza, him being taller as well, 6'2" for a welterweight, is quite good as well. Leg kicking him, deading the leg. So when he's trying to throw that overhand, he's struggling because he can't really get that leg drive and plant his feet into the ground as well, compared to if you had a normally functioning leg. And I believe he's just going to dead the leg, and then he's going to start lighting him up with combinations like cross hook to the body, leg kicking him, and just putting on a beating on him and finishing him in the first round. Unlike, what was his name? Roman Kopylov, he did it in the second. I can't rate Soriano anymore. I really can't from what I've seen from him. That one win against Stoltzfus and Butler by overhand was good. But apart from that, I've seen nothing. He looks really bad. Right, Julian Marquez versus Zachary Reese. I'm going with Zach Reese to win the fight, and I think he'll do it by submission. Oh, my throat. Submission, yeah. And round 2. And the reason I've picked round 2 is he's a can crusher. He fought Cody Brandage. Looks like he's going to get the triangle choke, which he has got a good bottom game, don't get me wrong. But he did not grab the heel of his opponent when he had the triangle to put him off balance, so he just gets thumped on his head. And then you got Julian Marquez, who only has 1 round cardio, but he's dangerous in the first round because he hits like a truck. Zach Reese leaves his chin so open, I can't believe it. Go back and watch the Contender Series fight with Zach Reese. The amount of times that guy allowed himself to get clobbered with a cross, it was unbelievable. And not only that, he has horrific balance. And I'm bringing this up to you because I believe the fight will go to the ground. He throws kicks, but he always falls over. And Julian Marquez, he's not a wrestler. He's got very good defensive jiu-jitsu in terms of submitting you, whilst like defending takedowns, like capitalizing off your takedown mistake into a submission. But he isn't the guy who's going to initiate the takedown and look to submit you. No. And that's why I think it's very dangerous. I see a fight where Julian Marquez, because again, he doesn't have that good fight IQ, fighting like a caveman, putting Zach Reese down in the second round after a first round of a lot of feints and not really much going on. And then in the second round, as soon as he drops him, a bit like Kevin Holland against Michelle Ellie and Jacek, Reese, because of how good his bottom game is and how wild Marquez will be if he feels like he's hurt his opponent, he'll wrap his legs over the top of him, get that thumb up so it's pointed up towards the sky, and get that armbar. So I'm predicting Zachary Reese, round 2, to get an armbar. But there is a high chance that Marquez beats him by KO. Right, Bruno Ferreira versus Dustin Stoltzfus. On paper, Bruno Ferreira wins it, but I think I underrate Stoltzfus. Well, not underrate, but he was not as bad. He ain't Matt Chanel bad, but he ain't Bruno Ferreira level. So I'm going with Bruno Ferreira, and I think he KOs him in the first round comfortably. One thing about Ferreira is he will draw you in with feints. So he's very good at baiting you. Not baiting, baiting you. Especially with a fake. And I can just see him baiting Dustin Stoltzfus in. He'll overcommit to try and thread across and get caught with a left hook and get flattened like it was Matt Chanel on the ground. Because don't get me wrong, his grappling is actually good. Go back and look at the Gerald Meerschaert fight. He was winning that fight, I believe, until the bottle job decided to give away his back and end up getting submitted. Like, he was winning that fight until that point. Abbas Magomedov just ran through him, and I expect Bruno Ferreira to do something similar, but not with kicks. And I don't expect him to just walk him straight down. I expect him to, like, throw those fakes, like I keep mentioning, to bait him in to come forward and then counter him. He's a counter striker at the end of the day. Even though it might not look like it, he is. He baits you in, draws you into the pocket, catches you with a counter punch. And he won't do one fake and then look to strike. He'll bait you in with more than one fake at a time to kind of make you think, right, I'm going to commit now. But then he doesn't commit to counter you. So then you back out and then he goes for another fake, which makes you think he might hit you this time. So you move out the way. And then he goes for it again. You're thinking he's probably not going to fire off. And then bang, he catches you. So I'm expecting him to knock him out in the first round by KO. Even though Dustin Stoltzfus, if somehow he pulls off a masterclass and just holds him down and wins, which I don't think is going to happen. So yeah. Raul Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Turcios. For me, very predictable fight. Raul Rosas Jr. And I think he actually is going to submit Ricky Turcios because one thing about Raul Rosas Jr., he's very aggressive with his approach and he's very direct with it as well. And Turcios, you know, I'm going with round 1 because he telegraphs everything. He swings at times with no technique. And when you do that against a guy who's constantly going to want to keep shooting on you, yeah, it didn't work against Rodriguez. He's underrated. Even though he got a rubbery win over Isaac Bulgarian, he's a very good fighter and he just stopped the takedowns. Turcios ain't got good takedown defense. He's one of those fighters where if you keep windmilling, the body opens up, you shoot for that double leg, you get your hips towards them, you drive forward and you get them down. And Turcios is one of those guys where you can do that with ease. And to get the submission, to be fair with you, will be kind of hard because Turcios himself has got alright jiu-jitsu. But when you come up against a guy like Rosas Jr., he is always looking to take the back. I know in his last fight he turned into a striker, but that was, I believe, to prove a point. I think he'll go back to his normal ways in this fight. And Ricky Turcios, I'm not going to lie to you, look at the inactivity. Not good. He's probably been training jiu-jitsu and probably doing the same things. But I expect Rosas Jr. to go out there and get the job done early. Even though this could end up being a good, high-paced fight, I think Ricky Turcios is just pretty much there for entertainment value because he can put on a good fight for the viewer, but if you actually were his coach, he makes a lot of questionable decisions, like with the swinging and not looking for the takedown when he should. I think, yeah, I've said enough. Right, Dominick Reyes versus Dustin Jacoby. I'm going with Jacoby and I'm going with round 1 KO. I know it's not a safe pick because I do know what deep down I can just picture happening. Dominick Reyes going out there and actually grappling for once and looking to get a submission over Jacoby. I really can see that. But if I go with what should happen and what I do believe in my head will happen, he should KO Dominick Reyes in the first round. Dominick Reyes has got a habit recently, after taking so much brutal damage, not like minor and, okay, it's MMA damage. No, severe damage. And when you come up against Jacoby, he's not a one-punch knockout artist, but he's a very technical fighter where his knockouts come by combination punches. And I just see Dominick Reyes, after getting his leg chewed up quite a lot in the first round, he was going to rush in like he did against Ryan Spann and get caught with a 1-2 and get put out yet again. I know having timeouts allowed him to recover, but there's certain damage you take and you have to be like, right, this guy's chin is cooked. And Dominick Reyes, unfortunately, the guy who beat John Jones, should have beat John Jones, his chin is gone. Way too many brutal knockouts. And Jacoby, again, with him, his chin's a bit suspect. Like, that Alonzo Menafield, he was the better fighter in that fight, but because when he throws that jab, he leaves the left-hand side of the right-hand side of his chin open, he's very vulnerable to be hit with them. But I don't think Dominick Reyes can come into the pocket as technical as he used to be. He really can't. You don't really see him land these clean hooks anymore. So I can just see Jacoby annoying Dominick Reyes with leg kicks early. Reyes overcommits, puts himself in the middle, gets caught with a 1-2 and gets knocked out cold yet again. And it's like, right, that's enough damage now, time to retire. Because I don't know why he still does it. It's a better fight than the Allberg fight. The Allberg fight was just written in the stars for him to get knocked out cold. This one might be a TKO, but I can see him also getting flatlined. Just with a simple 1-2 down the centre. And yeah, I'm done with Dominick Reyes. Right, Jared Cannonier against Nassourdine Imavov. Again, this card could be an absolute stinker or it could go well. Logically, I should be picking Jared Cannonier. Look at the value on that. Near even, 40 years of age. You don't move like that. Extremely good cardio out of nowhere. Really, really good. And very strong leg kicks at times. But I'm going with Nassourdine Imavov. And I think he's going to KO Jared Cannonier in the second round. One thing I noticed with Cannonier, go back and watch that Vettori fight. As good as the performance was, look at how he got lit up early in that fight by Vettori. And I believe the way he got lit up was with a cross, which hurt him early and he shot for a takedown. And I believe if that's a guy like Imavov, you cannot afford to get caught like that early because you've got to remember, when Nassourdine is at full cardio, he is extremely good. He has got very good footwork. And no, I'm not Dagestani before you think I've just got this Dagestani bias, which I don't think I have, but you might think I do. Jared Cannonier, I can just see him getting outworked earlier on in the fight. But if the fight goes if the fight goes past round 2, I'm scared because Jared Cannonier can get a second wind. But I'm thinking at the age of 40, the fight reminds me kind of how the Robert Whittaker fight could go when he came up against a guy who was going to hit him with multiple combinations and end them with a kick. And I wouldn't say Robert Whittaker hits extremely hard, but he has very fast combinations that can put you down. Jared Cannonier is not a granite chin guy. Like, I know he doesn't get knocked out all the time, but Nasruddin Imavov's one of those guys who does have a lot of power, who when he hits you, you can feel it, and he can have you backpedaling. Like, look at the Strickland fight. He lost that, but there was a few times he caught Strickland on the chin and he ate it. I don't think Cannonier at the age of 40 can eat a guy like Imavov's punches. Like, if you go back and look at the fights he's just had, both of them had no power. Israel Adesanya did, and he lost it, but that was the Israel Adesanya who circles around looking for leg kicks. Nasruddin Imavov, he's creative with his approach. He doesn't always just have to headhunt. He can teep you to the body, he can knee you to the body. And if you go back and watch that first round with Imavov and Dolidze. He hurt him badly with that body shot and then the hook. And Roman Dolidze could barely stand. And I was watching Jared Cannonier against Vettori. And although it was pretty much a flawless performance after round 1, earlier on he can get caught. And I believe he will because Imavov's at full cardio. But he won't get the finish. I think he'll be more patient and reserved with his gas tank, Imavov, because he knows how good Jared Cannonier's gas tank is. And then when we reach into round 2, that's when you see him get the finish because Jared Cannonier will be dazed. I don't think his chin will be as good as Dolidze at that moment. And he will just get lit up and get ground and pound finished. Because Jared Cannonier got caught with a few straights in that fight with Vettori in the first round quite a lot. And I think Nasruddin Imavov's got a way better cross than him. He's a bit like a sniper. I know it's in his nickname, but it literally is when he hits you with that left hand in the first round. But the only thing I fear, the round's going past round 2. Because if it does, I know Imavov. Look at the fight with Buckley. He beat Buckley. I think people forget about that. He got tired. He really did. And that was because he was going all out for the finish early and Buckley was growing in confidence in the third round. If that was a 5-rounder, Buckley probably would have stole a decision. But it's not going to in this fight. I don't think we're going to see over 2.5. So yeah, that's what it is for me. Nasruddin Imavov by round 2 KO. Thank you for watching. Talk to you soon.